I truly don't want to have another minute of you guys waiting to hear from Carolyn McMakin. She is our expert, product expert, doctor of chiropractic, but also I know many of you have read this amazing book, and she is the author of The Resonance Effect, how frequency specific microcurrent is changing medicine. And every single time, I just had the other day a quick call with her, and I always leave so invigorated and ready to learn even more about her her FSM and her knowledge. So I know, Carolyn, last year you had the biggest following in this call, and I'm gonna start sending text messages as you go to let everybody know that you're here. But thank you, thank you, thank you. I know you just crossed the world and are back home from Portland, and you made it to this call. So thank you so much. I hope you're able to connect right now. I see you.
Here we are. Hello. It's good to see you.
It's so fantastic to see you. You look great. I can't believe you told me you were jet lagged. You look fantastic.
Well, we're 4 days into it, so the jet lag is just about over.
Well, good. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to looking at all your presentation. I'm going to give you control of the slides, but if you need my help to switch anything, but you should have access right now.
Okay, so let's see.
Click on the screen and try.
Click on how do I change green button? What green button? Yeah, no, she's got it. I'm not sharing screen. There we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Healy Healy program. I developed the frequency specific portion of, of the Healy. Frequency specific microcurrent uses 2 frequencies at a time. And the history of frequency specific microcurrent is that frequency specific therapies were developed in the early 1900s by MDs and osteopaths in the US, the UK, and Germany, and used by thousands of physicians until about 1934. In about early 1920s, medicine labeled all electromagnetic therapies as ineffective fakes, and drugs and surgery and radiation were to be the only tools of medicine. Nutrition, herbs, homeopathy, and frequency therapies were outlawed. Every healthcare intervention except for prescription medication, surgery, and radiation became against the law. Physicians who use these tools would lose their license. And the biggest problem for us is that the research and the history were lost when those researchers died. There are some journals that remain in the rare book rooms, but by and large, all of the history of how the frequencies were developed that we use with frequency-specific microcurrent, that history is gone. Practitioners were persecuted and some were even put in jail. So there wasn't a way of keeping the information amongst the community. The devices went into the back rooms or even on the trash. If you've ever cleaned out your grandfather's library, you know that his books and journals, nobody knew what to do with them. So they were given away or put in the trash. So Harry Van Gelder was an osteopath and naturopath from Australia and the UK. And he bought a practice in Canada in 1946, and he walked into the back room of the clinic that he purchased in Canada in 1946, and he found a device that was covered up with a sheet. He took the sheet off, and there was a device that was made in 1922, and that device came with a list of frequencies. In 1983, George Douglas worked with Van Gelder and brought home a copy of the frequency list and put it in a drawer, as we do. And the list looked like this, but it had words that described what the frequencies were for: inflammation, allergy reactions, scar tissue, and then different tissues like the blood vessels, the connective tissue. And we have no way of knowing how anyone decided what these frequencies were for or how they were to be used. That was my job when I got the list in 1994. I met George Douglas in 1991, got my chiropractic license in 1994, and George found the list in that drawer in 1995. Well, we had a 2-channel microcurrent device, and he suggested that we use the frequencies with that 2-channel device because Van Gelder's machine had 2 channels. Now, we still don't know how someone in 1920 decided what frequency created what effect on what tissue. We have some ideas about how they work to change cell signaling and change what the frequencies do to change cell function. But we have no proof of that mechanism of action. But it matches all of the data that we have. The 1920s equipment was not microcurrent. It plugged in the wall when wall current was direct current. And the 1920s therapy was not FSM. I developed FSM in 1997. Oops, wait a minute. Come on. There we go. So when we use 2 frequencies together, the frequencies and the current from the 2 channels intersect when the frequencies are applied at the same time. And in this space in the middle, when the frequencies intersect, it creates an interferential effect that includes the frequency from channel A, the frequency from channel B, but it also includes the sum of channel A and channel B and the difference between channel A and channel B. And we're not sure which portion of the field produces the effect. We've always used it with 2 frequencies at one time that have to cross in the patient's field. But we do know that both of the frequencies for the condition and the tissue have to be correct to create balance and harmony in the tissue that we're treating or using the frequency for. So I first used the frequencies in 1995, mostly to treat nerve and muscle pain. And the frequencies were first taught in 1997 to find out if the effects were reproducible. And it turned out that they were. I taught it in January, and by June of 97, we knew that the people that purchased devices and started to use the equipment could reproduce the effects that we were finding in the clinic. Over the last 27 years, the frequency benefits and effects have turned out to be not only teachable, but reproducible. And we have research in animals and humans and clinical results that have accumulated over the next 25 years. There are 20 peer-reviewed papers, a medical textbook, and the resonance effect. It's as a consumer book. It's easy to read, and it tells the story of how FSM was created and how we found that the frequencies were effective. There are now 5,000 FSM practitioners in 23 countries. So frequency-specific microcurrent resonance, it's established since 1997, so it wasn't just invented yesterday or last month. It is reproducible, it's teachable, and it's reliable, predictable. It's non-invasive, it's low risk, and the current is current that you can't feel. It's comfortable, and most patients get very relaxed. So how do the frequencies work? And what is resonance? It's not a word that we use. You have a feeling for how it works, but you're not too sure. So resonance is the tendency of a system or a bond to oscillate at large amplitudes in response to some frequencies and not others. At the resonant frequency, very small forces can produce very large amplitude vibrations. So you can imagine that when 200 soldiers are marching in step, that's a pretty small force. It's just thump, 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 thump of their feet. But in the 1700s, 1800s, they found that soldiers marching in step can actually create a resonance that matches the frequency of the bonds that hold the bridge together. And soldiers marching in step can collapse a bridge. That's resonance. And we've all seen the effect when a singer sings a note that breaks a lead crystal glass. How does that work? My chemistry teacher explained it. He said there is a precise frequency holding lead atoms together in a 70% lead crystal matrix. There is a bond between the lead atoms, and the lead atoms begin to vibrate with the singer's note if it is precise, and it has to be sustained to keep the lead atoms vibrating to the point where they simply come apart. The lead crystal comes apart because the resonance creates a vibration that destabilizes the bonds that create the crystal, and the lead crystal glass simply shatters because of the effect of resonance. Now, you think of a lead crystal glass, and that's not a big deal, but resonance is incredibly powerful. This was a bridge across a strait called the Tacoma Narrows up near Seattle in the US. And the bridge was flexible. As you can see, it's rather thin in design, and it was placed across a narrow strait. And now the challenge that they had is that the space between the headland and the pylon and the pylon and the other pylon and the pylon and the headland were even. And there was a mild windstorm that brought 40-mile-an-hour winds and rain, which is pretty normal for the US, but it started the bridge to sway. And because the bridge was flexible, it reached the resonant frequency holding the bridge together, created a sine wave that matched the resonant frequency that held the bridge together, and the bridge simply came apart in the space of an afternoon. So it wasn't a hurricane that destroyed the bridge. It was resonance. It was that the swaying of the bridge reached the frequency that held the bridge together. So how does resonance affect the human body? Your body is filled with electrons that move. Every organ is made of atoms, molecules, and subatomic particles that contain moving electrons. Well, every moving electron creates a magnetic field, and your body is full of moving electrons. Therefore, your body has a magnetic field. Every organ in the body is part of that magnetic field, and every chemical and electrical bond has a frequency at which it resonates, whether it's lead or a bridge. It has a resonant frequencies. And there are cell membrane receptors that have frequencies at which they resonate for pathogen associated and damage associated molecular patterns. So balance and harmony, the theory behind resonance interventions is that interference inhibits proper function by creating loss of harmony between the cells, organs, and systems, interfering with appropriate function. How do we bring them back into balance? Every bond has a resonant frequency. So Newtonian physics describes large objects like your whole body, but it falls apart at the molecular level. That's how quantum physics was developed. Well, your body is a large object made of molecules, atoms, and subatomic particles that are held together by electromagnetic bonds. So your body obeys the laws of Newtonian physics, but your cells obey the laws of quantum physics. You're held together by electromagnetic bonds. How does your body convey current and information? Well, St. George was a biophysicist, and he published this in 1986 after working in this theory for 40 years, in this area of biophysics for 40 years. And he came to the fact that water lines the gel inside cells and forms structures that act as a semiconductor. So we think of our cells as full of fluid, but they're not. There is a gel matrix inside cells, and the water molecules line this gel matrix, and the molecules vibrate. Oxygen atoms hang on to the little matrix, and the hydrogen atoms flicker. Well, when the hydrogen atoms flicker, they create a hole that's in exactly the same place. And that is exactly what happens in a silicon crystal. And silicon is what is used to make computer chips. Computers are a semiconductor. Copper is a conductor, and the current flows very quickly along those two little lines, two little holes to carry electrons. Ceramic is an insulator because it doesn't let any electrons flow. Semiconductors allow the controlled flow of current and information. That is the characteristic of semiconductors. So your bioenergetic field is an electromagnetic system that looks solid, but it functions as a semiconductor network that conducts current. According to Robert Becker, if you read The Body Electric, you are polarized positive at the top, negative at the bottom. That means you have charge, and biophysics has demonstrated that the current flow also conducts information. So frequency-specific microcurrent uses specific frequencies from this list to resonate with interference and restore harmony. So biologic resonance explains the effects on living tissue. That's you. Pathogens, immune modules, molecules, and tissue fragments interact with cell membrane receptors. So this is an inflammatory product that's floating around in your cells. This is a pathogen-associated molecular pattern, a damage-associated molecular pattern. So if you cut your finger, you have little fragments of tissue that interact with this receptor, and they affect kinases that affect transcription factors that change the genetic expression of the cell and create a biological answer, such as pro-inflammatory cytokines. So when you get a paper cut, you have damage-associated molecular patterns, and within hours, your finger is red because the cells respond to the signaling at the receptor. Well, we are used to drugs or nutrients that act like keys in a lock to change membrane receptors and intercellular function. So if you take a medication such as ibuprofen, it's an anti-inflammatory. It blocks this receptor so it can't see PAMs and DAMs, and it won't secrete inflammatory products. Well, our theory is that biologic resonance, and it's the only thing that matches the data that we have. Frequencies appear to act like your key fob, your key remote opening a lock with an electromagnetic signal instead of a key. The frequencies appear to influence cell function electromagnetically with a specific frequency signal. It's reproducible. Anybody can do it. So how do we know that frequencies affect imbalances? Well, 30 years worth of experience, some clinical research, some chemical research, and reproducible results. So resonance is it's science. Two tuning forks tuned to the same frequency will vibrate in resonance with each other from across the room when one tuning fork is struck. So you bonk this tuning fork and it begins to resonate. And across the room, this tuning fork will begin to resonate if it is tuned to the same frequency that the first tuning fork is. It vibrates simply because of the resonance between the two tuning forks. If you create interference, put a piece of paper, a piece of wood in between the two tuning forks. If anything interferes with the resonance between this first tuning fork and the second tuning fork, it creates a lack of balance and a lack of harmony, and tuning fork number 2 stops resonating. So what creates lack of harmony in the bioenergetic field? This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So when you have hunger, stress, and fatigue, when your basic physiologic needs are not met, that creates a lack of harmony. When your safety needs are not met for security and safety, if you have fear, pain, or injury, if your needs for belongingness and love, the psychological needs we all have, create loneliness and isolation, that creates lack of harmony. your needs for esteem, your lack of achievement. Those are psychological needs, and that creates lack of harmony. And Maslow dealt in self-actualization, achieving your full potential, including even creative activities, frustration and stagnation. All of these create a lack of harmony in the bioenergetic field. So if you remove the interference and restore balance and harmony, that's the key. If something interferes with the resonance, it creates imbalance, lack of harmony, and lack of proper function. Remove the interference and function normalize. That's just physics. Resonance, balance, and harmony. Resonance theory suggests if the interference is removed, it may restore balance and harmony between cells and systems, helping to harmonize the bioenergetic field. That's biophysics. That's physics applied to biological systems. We are biological systems, and our natural state is that of balance and harmony. So frequency-specific resonance is not magic. It is applied biophysics. So with the Mag-Healy and the McMakin Mag-Healy programs, do be prudent and respectful. If the imbalances don't improve, you should seek proper medical evaluation and treatment just to make sure that you're treating the right thing with the right thing, and that you have a proper appreciation of what is appropriate for resonance therapy. If using frequencies doesn't enhance the harmony, seek medical evaluation. I really can't make any claims about the physical effects of the frequencies. We can only say that the frequency combinations that we use, channel A and channel B, harmonizes the bioenergetic field. So harmonizing the bioenergetic field with the Mag-Healy, the Mag-Healy contains FSM protocols that I wrote, delivered by 2 Healys, that should be safe and effective for most people under most circumstances. It's not a medical device. It's a wellness device to harmonize the bioenergetic field, and it will not be 100% effective for everyone who uses it. Although it seems to work pretty well from what I've heard, it should not be used instead of medical intervention. The duration, frequencies, intensity, frequency naming, and the descriptions of the frequency programs are based on practical experience, experts in our understanding of the interaction of frequency modulated magnetic fields with the bioenergetic fields. They haven't been confirmed by independent studies. We need a lot more research. So, are you made of physical matter, or are you made of energy? Are you energy that coalesces into physical existence? If Einstein's correct, there is no difference because matter and energy are equal, modified by a constant. And for centuries, philosophers and physicists have had the same discussion, but there's no conclusion or certainty because there's no way to prove that one perspective is correct. So that's why this has not been confirmed by independent studies. Are you matter? Are you energy? Are you a spiritual being that has a body? Are you a body that has a spiritual essence? So I highly recommend that you read The Resonance Effect. It's an easy to read book. Jim Oshman called it a page turner because he actually read it in about 4 hours, couldn't put it down, found that it was fascinating, funny, inspired, exciting, and altogether delightful. James Oshman is one of the premier biophysicists in the world. and he wrote Energy Medicine, the Scientific Basis. It's in English, German, French, Polish, Mandarin, Japanese, and it's available as an audiobook. If you can't find it on Amazon, you can go to frequencyspecific.com, at least to get the English version. So to achieve lasting effects, you have to establish a stable state. So water is a good example. It's completely stable as ice. It's the same material. It's completely stable as ice as long as the temperatures surrounding it is between 0 degrees and 1 degree centigrade. At 1 degree centigrade, it turns into very cold water, and it stays a liquid until the temperature, surrounding temperature, reaches 100 degrees centigrade. The correct frequencies can create changes and change the harmony of the field, and the changes can be permanent when the patient's metabolism, attitude, and mechanics support the change in state. So if we use frequencies for emotional conditions and the patient's mental habit is to focus on negativity, the frequencies will have a very temporary effect, but won't have any sort of permanent improvement on the bioenergetic field. So frequency-specific microcurrent, Mag Healy Harmony. My goal for the Mag Healy is to bring harmony to one person at a time. You, the people that you help, and that, once the harmony is established, will bring wellness and comfort and perhaps joy to one person at a time. And changing one person's life changes the world. And that's what we're here for. Healy, Mag Healy, frequencies for your life. I was ecstatic to be able to contribute to the Mag Healy and that module. And I hope you enjoy using it and helping other people to use it. Do good things, change lives, change the world. Thank you very much.